I'm sorry. I promise this won't take long.
Oh, that's not true at all. In fact, we're going to be here for a very, very long time. Hello everyone and welcome back to a critical retrospective. So as you all know, my first video on this channel was ranking every episode in Miraculous Ladybug Season 4. It was a pretty long video, just going over an hour, so you know what, I figured why don't we open this can of worms up once more. Let's dive back into Season 4 and take a more deeper look at things, what do you say? Of course, this is a monumental task because Season 4 has so much going on. So many storylines interweaving, interacting with one another to create one giant story for the first time in ages. It's actually quite ambitious, and while there are some growing pains as to be expected, overall I think Season 4 was a net positive for the show. Because things actually happened. What do you know? If you just move the story forward, people will like it. Go figure. But since I've got so much to go over, good and bad, I thought, you know what? I don't think I can do this alone. And so this project is brought to you by not just me, but fellow Miraculous Ladybug YouTuber, Miraculously Gory. He and I make very similar content, that being Miraculous Ladybug related video essays, and so I thought, you know what, this'll be perfect. Let's work together on this. Let's tackle this mammoth of a season together. With me the sword and he the shield, maybe we can take it down once and for all. So without further ado, grab some snacks, some drinks, find somewhere comfortable to sit, because we're in this for the long haul. Marinette's character arc is the foundation to which Season 4 was built upon, which I suppose is pretty obvious. I mean, she is the main character. Naturally, you don't want to take too much attention away from your lead to focus on other characters with not as much going on. It's just common practice in the writer's room, I suppose. And that is a good thing in moderation. You still want to focus on other characters and other story arcs because that makes the world feel more real. It doesn't feel like the world just revolves around this one person we're following every 20 minutes. And this is something that previous seasons had a massive problem with, especially Season 3. Seriously, Marinette was just weaseling her way into these little things because, I don't know, I guess because she's the main character. Anyone else remember the episode Kwame Buster, where apparently no Miraculous user in all of human history has ever been mentally strong enough to use so many Miraculouses at once? Which, I mean, come on, if that's not the biggest exaggeration in the history of the world, I don't know what is. Or maybe the episode Party Crasher, which could have just been a nice episode about Adrien and his friends, but we had to insert Marinette in there too. Or even the episode Cat Blanc, where for some reason everything that happened just had to be Marinette's fault because she gave a gift to somebody. You see what I mean? It felt like we were just tethered to Marinette just for the sake of it instead of telling interesting stories with her. Did Season 4 improve this? Well, I'd say so. Mainly because the episodes involving Marinette in some way are actually involving her in a way that makes sense. As in, we are exploring her character development that isn't just her infiltrating somebody else's storyline, and we're actually trying to explore what makes her who she is. That's great. That's actually really intriguing. That's a story that I think is worth being told. And I feel like this is kickstarted very well in the episode Gang of Secrets. Marinette discovers that the pressure of being Guardian and Ladybug has become too much for her to handle, and so she breaks down due to the stress of it all. She becomes a nervous wreck and starts pushing the people that she loves away, despite the fact that they just want what's best for her and to make her feel better about herself. But that's not what Marinette sees. Marinette just sees potential people for her to hurt with her lies. More hearts for her to break in the pursuit of keeping the Miraculous a secret. Collateral damage. And so she decides that she can't have friends or family who look out for her because it's just not worth the risk. It's such an easy trap for her to fall into, and so now she's miserable. She feels like she has to live up to the legacy Master Fu left behind by being the good guardian of the Miraculouses and never making any mistakes. Calling for Shadow Moth to come and fight her so that she can get this over with and live a normal life already. This is the most characterization she's gotten since, like, Season 2. 2, because she's actually being faced with hardships that isn't just melodrama. You know, the whole season 3 love nonagon that it was absolutely plagued with. It was bad back in those days, I tell you what. You couldn't take 2 steps without somebody going on about how much they loved somebody else and how that love was unrequited. I was begging the writers to actually write something that wasn't about romance. Try and explore the deeper psychological issues with the characters you've created, please. And lo and behold, they finally have, and what do you know, it's actually good. Marinette breaking down in stress and trying her hardest to keep everything together, failing at that, and then learning to pick up the pieces with other people is great. It's an outstanding message, which, honestly, I didn't think the writers were capable of delivering after Marinette's stalking escapades in season 3. Gang of Secrets is kind of a turning point for Marinette's character, learning that she can't face the world all on her own, just like she's been doing for seasons at this point. And this is pretty perfectly executed using the first 2 episodes of season 4, Truth and Lies. In the first episode, Luka and Marinette are actually in a relationship. This is a way for Marinette to actually have some downtime and live like a normal teenager would. But the issue is, she just became guardian of the Miraculous, like, over the weekend, and so she's got a lot more responsibilities to deal with. Desperate to hide everything from her friends, and especially Luka, who she's spending a lot more time with. She wants to be normal, she wants Luka and her to work together, but it's just not feasible anymore. But she tries anyway. We see a montage of her and Luka doing lovey-dovey date stuff, and then Marinette leaving because of some kind of weird excuse to go be Ladybug and stop a supervillain. And this just kind of leaves Luka completely in the dark about what's going on. He just sits there and does the thing they were doing before, alone. And it's really sad to watch, because you perfectly understand why Marinette has to keep bouncing around, but you also feel for Luka. But Marinette's had it drilled into her by Master Fu for like 2 seasons at this point that nobody can know. Nobody can understand what you're going through because you're the savior, you're the protector, it's your job to keep everybody safe, no matter the cost. And so she sacrifices the relationships of those she loves just for this, to carry out a mission that is greater than the sum of her parts. Something that realistically nobody would ever be able to bear alone, but she manages. Just barely though. And so she says that the truth is the only thing she can't tell Luka, which breaks his heart of course. But she doesn't really have a choice, does she? And so she fights truth with Cat Noir, and then at the end of the episode when Luka is deakumatized, they break up. Because it's just too difficult for Marinette to juggle her responsibilities. So she puts one of them away. Completely. At the cost of everything else in her life. Her hobbies, her friends, her family. I mean, especially her hobbies. I mean, when was the last time we saw Marinette design something? So far in season 4, she hasn't. She hasn't had time to. She hasn't been able to. And whenever she was able to make something, it was always to keep her identity a secret. There was no way for her to channel her creative energy into something she actually enjoyed, because she was so swamped with work and all that. But then, in Gang of Secrets, something amazing happens. Something that, at the time of its release, was absolutely revolutionary. Marinette reveals her secret identity to Alya. Finally! Something interesting happened in the show! And this is something that would fundamentally, completely change how the story would go from this point onwards. Because now Marinette isn't alone, she's actually got a companion, someone who she can disclose her deepest secrets to. It's actually really nice. And it actually develops Marinette's character in a way that doesn't revolve around Adrien. Because I know I keep bringing this up a lot, but in season 3, literally everything about Marinette was Adrien, Adrien, Adrien. How can I get Adrien to notice me? But this identity reveal actually allows us to explore other aspects of Marinette's character, her other relationships. It's actually really nice to see because it keeps things fresh and prevents things from going stale. And now, whenever they do tackle the romance plot, it doesn't feel annoying because we didn't see it as much this season. It shakes things up, which at the time this aired, we really needed to do so. Needless to say, the season 3 finale left a pretty bad taste in everybody's mouths. All of the characters felt like they were going in weird directions, especially Chloé, which we'll definitely get to in a bit. But season 4 comes out and it's actually doing pretty well. It's somehow managing to build upon a really bad foundation. I don't know what happened. I don't know how they managed to get all of this skill out of nowhere. How do you do it, writers? How do you bounce back from that? Maybe they just had an epiphany that by the end of season 3, things had truly gotten stale. Imagine if Marinette didn't reveal her identity to Alya, or anyone for that matter. What would season 3 really be about? I mean, probably the love square stuff again. The usual pining for Adrian while casually committing crimes to win his affection. Nobody wants to see more of that than is absolutely necessary. So the writers finally decided to make a change, which created a domino effect of future changes to future storylines. Taking one small step forward in the right direction opens limitless possibilities, and the writers, by taking this risk, changed up the status quo in a way that made future storylines possible, and I really respect them for that. I just hope they keep it up. So, did they? Well, I'd say so, because Marinette and Alya's relationship has actually improved quite a lot this season. And Marinette is actually starting to open up more, what do you know? And this kind of cascades into some new storylines that I keep mentioning, but failing to bring up for whatever reason. So, let's rattle some of them off right now, shall we? The episode Optigami, where Marinette learns to trust Alya more. She also learns the idea of delegating tasks to different people, which is nice. A little scene in the episode Crocodile, which I really appreciated, where Alya pretends to have sprained her ankle to distract everybody so Marinette can go and transform. Before, we'd have to sit through the whole same old Marinette making excuses thing before she goes to transform, but now Alya's doing it. They're getting more creative with the ways Marinette's able to transform, because now Alya can act as a cover, which I really like. Marinette is finally being more vulnerable and open to the people around her, and this in turn is allowing them to help her in ways that she never thought possible before. Before, she had to take on the world completely alone and deal with her problems all by herself, but now she has Alya to help her out. Alya can keep Marinette grounded and prevent her from succumbing to the worst parts of herself. Alya as a character is finally becoming more developed thanks to the identity reveal that Marinette put in place. It's a plot point that deserves a little bit more scrutiny, don't you think? So why don't we do just that?
Greetings, fans of Critical Retrospective and or fellow victims of the horror show. If you don't know who I am, well, you might have chosen Death. Nah, I'm just kidding, relax, I'm not gonna go that far. The name is Miraculous, MG for short, the honorable and sinister special guest for the Critical Retrospective. I'd like to start this section by giving a huge thanks to CR for his opportunity. I was shocked when he offered me this collab, yet I did what any person would do. I said, hell yes! He also made a wise choice. CR came to the right guy for this job. As someone who returned to the show during season 4, it gave me the chance to realize how bad the show truly is, yet allowed me to see season 4 for what it is. A void of pure emptiness that drains the life out of the story like a vampire sucking blood. While yes, I did give my thoughts on season 4 in my first video essay, we're diving a little bit deeper into this season 4 video, which I'm all here for. That being said, here are my thoughts on Marinette as the new guardian of the Miraculous.
Hi, I suck at my job!
Marinette really sucks at their job as guardian. Yes, it's true, Fu did give her the Miraculous out of nowhere Miracle Queen, best mentor my and flooded Marinette with all the stress. She showed that stress in Truth Gang of Secrets, Gang of Secrets especially with how broken she is. However, she is just a noob at the end. Why? Because she's a simp? Actually, her voice I use is because of that. In Strike Back, she somehow chooses Adrian to use the dog Miraculous rather than Sabrina. Like, seriously, what the were you thinking? Why ignore Sabrina like that? Thanks, Rick Ashley. Anyway, that Adrian was actually Felix, who then stole her yo-yo and all the Miraculous inside. And all it cost Gabriel was my favorite quality to do so. Ladybug didn't know it was Felix, but as I said, why not choose Sabrina? She wanted to choose someone who wasn't affected by a risk. Fair point. Well then, why not make sure Sabrina's alright first, then go for Felix? That would make more sense if you ask me. To further explain my argument, allow me to recall a lesson I told in my first video essay. If you are a simp when you're a superhero, you're Other than that, the other issue is the heroes. She now has unlimited power in her arsenal, even time travel, yet she barely uses it. As far as I can tell, there's a total of 14 episodes out of 26 where she uses the heroes. Sounds like a lot, yet a handful of them are just one hero, from Mr. 72 to Crocodile. At least use the powers you were given, you goofy goober, deserved or not! Not just that, she doesn't bother to use the Red Miraculous to make her life easier, go back in time, and see who Shadow Moth is. But apparently, Marinette just loves making her life hard for herself when easy opportunities are thrown right at her face. That's like walking right into a bear trap in the middle of the open, rather than walking right around it. Easy to avoid, but you made life hard for yourself, you goofy goober. However, that can be excused as, we need more episodes. Oh no, as Guardian, she is at her job. Just dog. Then again, who am I kidding? All the Guardians are at their job. That's my take. Speaking of take, let's toss the mic back to Critical Retrospective and move on to the next section. CR, you're up.
Just like with every other investigation, the answer was right under my nose since the very beginning.
You know, back in the day, Alya didn't really feel like that much of a main character despite her status as the best friend to the lead. Being the main character's best friend was literally all she was good for. She was there to help Marinette try and win over Adrian and not much else. It was pretty disappointing because I feel like Alya had quite a lot of potential. Being so fundamentally intertwined with the main character like she was meant that she had so many stories that could be told. We could explore her and Marinette's friendship in more ways than one. See her as more than an accessory, a tool to get Marinette and Adrian closer together. Because back in those days, that was pretty much all Alya was. She did have some other aspects to her character, such as trying to figure out Ladybug's identity, but it was very overshadowed by being a wingman. Which is a shame, because her trying to discover Ladybug's true identity was something very interesting about her. In the episode Lady Wi-Fi, she thinks Chloé is a ladybug for some reason, and so she spends the entire episode trying to get her exposed. This episode has very little to do with Adrian, and that's a good thing, especially when it's not really about the romance. This is Alya's character that we're showcasing here. We don't need anybody else to do this for her. And then in the episode Sapates, when she's trying to explain what she found about Ladybug to Marinette, not knowing they were one and the same. It was a very interesting piece of dramatic irony. Alya waxing lyrical about Ladybug while Marinette just had to sit and watch and pretend that she didn't know anything. But this was kind of taking a back seat to literally everything about the romance plot. Alya all of a sudden was just a plot device. Take the episode Reflect All for example. Marinette needs a model to wear her accessories and clothes for her website. So Juleka offers to do this because she wants to come out of her shell a little bit more. Which is really nice. I'm really happy for Juleka. I'm glad she's oh wait, nope. Alya shows up, and you know she's not having any of it. She decides that Adrian should be the model, just so Marinette and Adrian can spend some time together. Oh, come on, writers. You do realize that Alya's life doesn't revolve around this one little thing about Marinette, right? She has so much more to her character, so much untapped potential, and you just don't see it for some reason. It seems that sometimes you just see her as the person pulling the curtain so Adrian can show his majesty to everybody. This is something that was especially egregious in Season 3. It felt like so many of the secondary characters were just props in Marinette and Adrian's love life. And I'm sad to say that this is also a thing in Season 4 and Season 5, but that's not what this video is about, so we can forget about it. In Season 4, the episode Gabriel Agreste kind of centers around Alya and friends trying to get Marinette to confess her feelings to Adrian again! Oh my goodness gracious, why are we still doing this? Here's a word of advice for you, Alya. It's Season 4 by this point, and Marinette still hasn't confessed to Adrian. She's probably not going to. So maybe just move on. I don't know how hard that might be for you, but not so hard for me. The romance isn't even what drew me into the show in the first place, so if I can have an easy time letting it go, then surely you can as well, especially considering just how long it's been going on for. Wow, CR, you started this whole section off pretty negatively. Is there anything you do like about Alya in Season 4? Well, believe it or not, but yes. All of the issues I have with her character have been eclipsed by the fact that she's so much more interesting now, and this can be traced back to one event. The identity reveal in Gang of Secrets. Ever since Alya found out that Marinette was Ladybug, she's become a main character now, which means she's finally being treated as somebody important by the story. For example, the episode Sentibubbler. This episode is one of the best episodes, not just in Season 4, but in the whole show. It's a completely tense chess match between Alya and Shadow Moth that leaves you on the edge of your seat. And the best part about all of this is that Alya takes center stage, showing why she's worthy of the Fox Miraculous. She puts two and two together and realizes that if she doesn't do something, her family will be killed. And since Shadow Moth wants her to go against Ladybug, she's gonna have to play along with him for a little bit until she can figure out how to let Ladybug defeat him. Her quick thinking and ability to adapt in situations this dire has never really been showcased before, and it's because there's never been an opportunity to showcase this. She's never been allowed to step outside of her comfort zone before in terms of her character because the writers were just too scared of moving things forward. But now they're becoming brave, I suppose, and now the characters are becoming three-dimensional for the first time in years. And when I say three-dimensional, I really mean it, because this character development is not confined to Sentibubla, oh no. There are multiple episodes specifically designed to giving Alya more growth than she's ever had before. Take, for example, another episode, Rocketeer. This episode is basically just truth, but with Alya instead. Alya and Lila's relationship is kind of at risk because Alya can't be honest with him anymore since she knows Marinette is Ladybug. There's a scene in the episode where Marinette tells her that because they're superheroes, they have to keep secrets even from the ones they love. Now Alya is in the same boat as Marinette, keeping secrets from her loved ones. But since Alya doesn't really have the experience to truly appreciate how important this is yet, she messes up. You see, in the episode Sentibubla, she manages to trick Shadow Moth into thinking that she's no longer going to be Rena Rouge anymore, so we'll stop going after her in the Fox Miraculous. It was a really good plan, as I've said so before. However, this means that Rena Rouge can no longer be shown in public. Somehow, this makes Alya's suit as a superhero completely change to adapt to her new role, and she starts going by Rena Furtive. I'm not really sure about the design, but you know what, I'll see where this goes in terms of the storyline. As it turns out, at the end of the episode, Alya reveals that she's still Rena Rouge to Nino. This doesn't seem like a very good idea, does it? Especially considering how much emphasis has been put on the secret identity stuff for so long. But it actually makes sense for Alya to do this, if you ask me. Remember, Marinette has so much more experience with lying to her friends and family about what she's really up to. She's used to keeping a secret. She's managed to mentally and emotionally work herself up to lying to the people she cares about every single day. Alya's new to this whole thing, however, and so she does it wrong. She doesn't see all of the little ways that telling somebody a small little superhero-y secret could go wrong like Marinette probably would. Marinette has so much experience with seeing the bigger picture here that she can put her own feelings to the side for the greater good. Alya's life only recently transitioned into being more about the Miraculouses, and so she's not used to this kind of lifestyle. She does understand on paper the importance of keeping your identity a secret, but not practically because she doesn't have the experience. Then later in the episode Strike Back, the finale to the whole season, Alya tells Ladybug that she told Nino her secret identity was still active. Ladybug was understandably enraged at this at first, but then she seemed to soften up after the battle. Alya apologizes, saying that she couldn't lie to Lila because they tell each other everything. Alya wasn't willing to sacrifice the relationship of somebody who meant so much to her, which is understandable. She is a rookie at this after all. She's allowed to make mistakes like this, if you ask me. It's just more interesting when a character has flaws that they need to work through, especially considering the fact that she does end up working through them right now. Marinette then says that she understands she had a best friend who she told everything to as well, and she wasn't able to lie to her either. It's a very nice scene, and it really showcases just how strong the bond between Marinette and Alya truly is. It doesn't matter how severe the betrayal of trust seems to be at the surface, because, to quote Cinema Therapy, everyone's behavior makes sense to them. Therefore, it's completely fallacious to diagnose somebody's actions using your intentions as a filter. Marinette decided to use empathy and understanding with Alya in this scene, which I think is very meaningful. It showcases her growth as a character. She's not willing to let her emotions take over and uses logic and reasoning instead. She reasons with Alya, logically assuming that Alya had a good reason for doing what she did. And it's not like there aren't consequences arising from this scene, because Alya gives the Fox Miraculous back, realizing that it's too dangerous now that Shadow Moth knows that she's active again. This was probably a pretty difficult decision for her to make. After all, she's built up quite a positive relationship with Trix by this point. Giving that up probably wasn't easy, but Alya knew that it was the right thing to do as a superhero. It really expertly showcases her character growth, as now she realizes what the true meaning of being a hero actually is. She lost sight about that in favor favor of her own problems and issues in the episode Rocketeer, but she comes back around, and that's what I love about it. She makes mistakes, but she learns and grows from them like a character should. In seasons 1, 2, and 3, Alya didn't really have any character progression like this. She was just static like everybody else in the roster. But no, it turns out if you actually put some effort into your writing, Astruc, maybe you can make characters that are actually worth it, worth talking about, worth speculating about. And with the right amount of polish, any character can be as important as Alya ends up being in season 4. You just have to give it your best effort. You just have to do enough to change the character, reinvent them from the ground up to keep them from going stale. And Alya's not the only character this season who's been given an overhaul.
This section will be a rehash of my first video essay. While Marinette did backstab Cat Noir by telling Alya her secret, I was still down for it, because for me, it has potential. And it was executed well in my opinion. Alya became more confident, less annoying, aside from Luka Kagami, and a back a few times. Scarecrow especially was her at her best. Plus her duo of Cat Noir was great even. God, the pain never ends! There is only one good pain in the world, and that is Jake Daniels' song Pain, which I can't show because of CR. Oh no, not that CR. He's chilling nice. This CR. So sucking poopy. I do like seeing Marinette use Alya as a spy / second in command. Wish he did that for other chess pieces. But as I said before, it still feels bad to trust Alya more than the guy who saved her life numerous times. It's a mixed batch for me. Sometimes I love seeing Alya be better. Other times I see Ladybug replace Cat Noir with Alya. Once again, what the poopy? It's not a huge deal, yet a mixed one for me. Overall, a nice development for an awful character. Then she quits being Reina and goes back to square one, but worse.
You even kissed him at the Brandon Museum. I mean, even though you thought it was a statue.
You just chill, Loot. Fuck.
Character development is an allergy to this show.
Surprisingly enough, the season 3 finale was in fact not the end of Gabriel. Gabriel has been akumatizing people and being Hawkmoth for 3 seasons at this point, so you'd think he'd be done by now. Surely the writers would move on to something fresh by this point, but no. We just can't let go of Gabriel Agreste as the series' main antagonist, can we? It's not like we could have sped around his backstory at least a little bit more. Drip feeding tiny little morsels of his backstory here and there is not the right way to do this. They really should have just kicked him to the curb by the season 3 finale and then given us a new villain like Lila or something for season 4. I'm honestly very surprised that they didn't do that. This is season 4. But you know what? Fine. Gabriel is the villain once again. Let's see how he is. Because this season is a chance for the writers to redeem themselves as they have in other areas. Therefore, in theory, if they give Gabriel at least marginally more character development than he did in the past 3 seasons, we should be alright. And they need to do a little bit more to actually differentiate him. Try and make him feel a little bit different to how he was before, because by this point, we're all sick of Hawkmoth. If they don't do something to modify his character in any meaningful way, then people are just gonna start leaving the show. Because it's not worth sticking around for something that refuses to accommodate to your viewing habits. I guess it's a good thing Gabriel changed when he did then, right? How about we get a good new look of the guy and see what's different about him? Ugh, what even is that design? You know, when people said that they needed to move on to something fresh, I'm pretty sure that they did not mean this. I mean, I can kind of respect that they did do something different with him, but it does feel like a half-hearted effort. I mean, he barely looks any different to how he did when he was Hawkmoth. They just gave him a different looking collar and added a weird eye patch to his face that looks very weird and stupid. Who approved this design? It's a crime against humanity and character designs as a whole. It will go down in history as one of the worst things humanity has ever produced. Schools will be teaching this as a subject on how not to design somebody for eons to come. Its legacy is destined to be tainted with mud forevermore. Okay, that being said, I kind of like the design. I mean, I know that's probably really frustrating to hear. I mean, pick a lane, buddy. But this is also coming from the person who said Queen Banana was their favorite episode in season 4, so, you know, I'm not exactly the most credible source here. After all, I feel like I've just been so starved for new stuff in the show that I'm willing to take whatever I can get, however mediocre it appears to be. Even if Moth's design is so much better on so many levels, I've had enough of the guy. I'd rather have a design that I can poke fun at whenever I see it because it's something different. Because now I actually have an emotional reaction to something other than Moth's plans, I suppose, I don't know. Now this freakishly abhorrent design is getting me talking about stuff. Engagement is high and fans are speculating about what Moth's future will bring. Besides, it's not just the design that's different, but also his new powers. I'm honestly surprised that I didn't bring that up first instead of going on about his design for eons. Anyway, the whole thing with Gabriel this season is that he merged the butterfly and peacock Miraculous, allowing him to use both powers. This actually gives us a lot of potential to see akumatizations play out rather differently to how they have been in seasons past. Because now, not only will akumatized villains be fighting Ladybug and Cat Noir, but senti-monsters as well. This raises the stakes because now Ladybug and Cat Noir have to fight two villains at the same time, and they not only have to capture an Akuma, but also an Amok. However, you could make the argument that this isn't exactly as original as it sounds on paper. After all, didn't season 3 also do this kind of thing in a few of its episodes, i.e. Reflect All? In that episode, Mayura and Moth work together to akumatize Juleka into Reflector and give her a senti-monster buddy, Reflect All. Then, Ladybug and Cat Noir have to fight both of them at the same time, which made for a very unique battle considering the fact that they swapped Miraculouses around. Yes, I suppose, but you know, that doesn't really matter too much to me in my eyes. Because remember, Mayura was so sparsely used in season 3 despite how hyped up she was. Anyone else remember when the showrunners were saying the new villain will make Moth look like a baby in comparison? She's going to be Moth's boss. Except season 3 rolls around and no, that is in fact not what happened. The idea of giving an akumatized villain a senti-monster ally for Ladybug and Cat Noir to defeat at the same time was only used in that one episode, Reflect All. And Mayura was just so sparsely used throughout season 3, I can count the amount of episodes she appeared in on one hand. Well, technically, she appeared in 6 episodes, not 5, so I guess I couldn't really count them on one hand, but that's not important. The point is that Mayura was not nearly as important as any of the marketing and promotion made her out to be. She rarely ever appeared because I guess the writers wanted to give more time to Gamer 2.0 and Stormy Weather 2. Ooh. Honestly, season 3 had such a nasty habit of reusing villains that makes me want to break down in tears. Why they thought that these filler episodes were more important than the new villain is honestly so perplexing. Well then, I guess it's a good thing that season 4 fixes this with Shadow Moth. Shadow Moth appears in every single episode of the season. He always merges the Peacock and Butterfly Miraculouses no matter what he's doing. He's really committed to the rebrand, which makes things incredibly consistent. It's not like he's Moth for most of the season and then in only like 5 or 6 episodes he's actually doing stuff as Shadow Moth, no. And this also means that senti-monster involvement is a lot more frequent than it was in season 3. Senti-monsters appear in the episodes Truth, Queen Banana, Gabriel Agrest, Mega Leech, Guilt Trip, Optigami, Senti-Bubbler, Haxon, Jilin, Ephemeral, Kuroneko, and Strike Back. 12 episodes is definitely an improvement from 6, but I can't say it's great. I'd say Senti-Monsters should have appeared in at least 20 episodes to really hammer home that Shadow Moth isn't messing around this time. But no, the Peacock Miraculous is wasted on this guy. And it's not only how often he uses the Peacock Miraculous that is kind of a problem for me, but also the way that he uses it. He's just so uncreative it hurts. The only episodes where the senti-monsters are actually kind of original and interesting are Truth, Queen Banana, Mega Leech, Guilt Trip, Optigami, Kuroneko, and Strike Back. That's it. So really, there are only 6 episodes with interesting senti-monsters. Exactly the same amount as in season 3. So I guess things haven't improved at all, have they? All the other senti-monsters from the episodes I didn't mention are just clones of already established characters or are just reused from the previous season. Or the episode Haxon, which is a special case in which the senti-monster involvement was just such a letdown. Shadow Moth creates a senti-monster, Haxon, whose only purpose is to make Markov feel negative emotions so that he can akumatize him again. Gabriel, you have the Peacock Miraculous. one of the most powerful Miraculouses in the whole Miracle box. The sentient monsters that you create will be completely under your control. Why are you wasting one on trying to bring back a villain who betrayed you in the past? It just doesn't compute. The logic just does not compute. And you know what makes this even worse? 2 episodes prior, he made a sentient monster clone of the bubbler that he could control at will. So this means that he doesn't really need akumatized villains anymore. He could just use the Peacock Miraculous to create clones of akumatized villains who would be under his complete command. This is the perfect solution, especially considering the fact that akumatization has looked less and less powerful with every episode. So many characters are able to just break free of akumatization effortlessly in so many season 4 episodes. So this is the solution you've been waiting for, Shadow Moth. Just create a sentient monster clone of Robustus that you won't have to worry about betraying you. And here's the real kicker. He has done this exact thing in the past. Anybody else remember the New York special where Mayura created a Robustus sentient monster to distract Ladybug and Cat Noir while they're in New York? Why didn't he just do that again? Why is he so inept? Why can't he just use the Peacock Miraculous to its fullest potential like Felix goes on to do in the episode Emotion in season 5? You know what? Now I understand why Felix wanted the Peacock Miraculous so badly. It's not because of the treatment of sentient monsters, it's because Gabriel doesn't know how to use it effectively. It reminds me of something Smarty Pants said in one of his reviews. Where's the sentient monster? You're wearing the Peacock Miraculous. Use it, it's not there for fashion. Which, yeah, there is literally no reason why Gabriel should go out of his way to get both Nuru and Dusu out, say Nuru Dusu unify, use both Miraculouses at once, then only send an Akuma out. It's a waste of a power. You're wasting your time, you're wasting your effort. At that point, just be Hawk Moth, buddy. The idea of Gabriel using the Peacock Miraculous once it has been fixed was such a cool one. It actually gave rise to some interesting discussions and stories and character development. It had the potential to really shake things up and breathe new life into the show. But no, like most things in the show, Shadow Moth is just another example of wasted potential. Being a Miraculous fan is to make peace with the mediocre though. We think it's better than absolutely abhorrently Miracle Queen level bad at the very least, and that's what keeps us going into season 5. If Shadow Moth had just used sentient monsters more frequently and far more creatively, we might have a good villain on our hands. But it seems as though that just wasn't the plan. They wanted to do the same thing they've been doing for years at this point, only giving us the bare minimum amount that would be different just to drum up some buzz for a little bit of short-term profit. Did fixing the story ever really matter with Shadow Moth? Or was he just a marketing tool, a gimmick to get people talking during the off-season? The world may never truly know. The only thing I do know for sure is that we definitely deserved better than what we got.
Now, this is an example of holding back the power of a villain. Shadow Moth, in my opinion, is an idea I like, but executed poorly. First off, the name is not the best, but CR said he was supposed to be named Peacock Moth. Thank God they changed it. His design is the same as Hawk Moth, but looks cooler in my opinion. I like the fan the coat he has. It's a nice touch. You know what's not a nice touch? How Dusu gets wasted like this guy.
Brandon! Brandon!
What?
Put some Janet Jackson on.
I'm not putting Janet Jackson on, okay?
There are a total of 10 episodes where Gabriel actually uses Dusu. I do want to save that Dusu stuff for my own video, but I will say this. Her power is literally a god power. Create any creature you want with the power of
imagination.
How cool is that? And he wasted it like the boomer he is. He finally fixed a Miraculous that took away his wife, preventing all his fantasies with Emily. And he decides, nah, Nuru's better. You're dumb to be Dusu. Talk about an ungrateful and lazy villain. To be fair, Gabe did get better this season as a villain with plans. Obligami and Cinderella are definitely highlights. Great plans, well executed. Even if he failed, he still did good. Then we have plans like Haxen, where he uses perhaps his powerful Sender Monster and wastes it on a robot. Haxen low-key could have made Gabriel win, but nope, we need to redeem. Make more episodes. Yep, that's what I meant. Redeeming terrorists is bad, kids. Don't do that. If you do that, you are a bad person, an idiot, and a moron, and a goober. Point being, Shadow Moth could have been a threat, but gets washed away, all because he barely used the Peacock Miraculous to its greatest, and has more generic plans rather than bad ones. And in season 5, they did the same thing, but worse than ever. Look at him! He went from a candy cane to Colonel Sanders! That's all I tend to say, and speaking of season 4, time for part 4.
You see, back in Season 2, there was kind of an influx of new heroes joining the cast: Rena Rouge, Carapace, and Queen Bee. Each of them had very meaningful debuts, which actually drummed up a lot of hype in the fandom. This was because it was a completely new concept. More heroes other than Ladybug and Cat Noir? Sign me up. This actually allows secondary characters to become more important, which definitely was the case for Alya, Lila, and Chloé, especially Chloé. This gave them character development that they desperately needed at the time, and actually made watching the show a lot more interesting because you wanted to see more of the secondary heroes. One thing Season 2 did incredibly well was making every new hero feel like something big. They didn't appear often, and they were very sporadic, and there were only 3 of them, but oh boy did it matter whenever they showed up. It feels like becoming a superhero is only reserved for the elites, the best of the best, and all of the heroes had some sort of narrative significance in the story. But then here comes Season 3. If you thought that secondary characters were being given Miraculouses in Season 2, you haven't seen nothing yet. You know who the first character to get a Miraculous in Season 3 is? Luka. You know, that guy. He wasn't exactly important in the earlier seasons, was he? He was basically just a tertiary character, not good for much more than being a love interest for Marinette. And while he did have a level of significance that technically kind of qualifies him for a Miraculous if you squint your eyes a little bit, he's not nearly as important as the likes of Alya, Nino, and Chloé. All 3 of those characters had pretty alright character development, especially Chloé, within the first 2 seasons of the show, and appeared a lot to make their scenes worthwhile. Ever since Luka's first appearance, he could basically be seen as some kind of stand-in, an alternate love interest, a trope, and nothing more than that. In order to give him a Miraculous, they needed to develop him a little bit more, at least somewhat, and the same is true for all of the other heroes introduced this season. All of the reasons for why they became superheroes are so token it hurts. Slowly but surely, you could see that having a Miraculous to your name wasn't nearly as important as it used to be. It's like, you get a Miraculous, you get a Miraculous, everybody gets a Miraculous. And when everyone's super, no one will be, so as you can probably tell, things started to drop off quite significantly. When Rena Rouge first appeared, I was beyond excited. Same with Carapace, same with Queen Bee. However, whenever somebody got a Miraculous in Season 3, I was just sat there, completely numb, apathetic, didn't care at all. Because why should I give 2 hoots about characters who I don't know a thing about? The only character who I actually think kind of earned their Miraculous in Season 3 was Kagami. And that's because her hero debut episode was actually about her and explored her character a little bit. All of the other characters in Season 3, they were literally just afterthoughts. They were only there to sell toys and nothing more. But with Kagami, they actually tried to give her some more interesting character conflicts when using the Miraculous. She felt that she wasn't worthy of it because she didn't stick to the intended plan, which is something, I'll give the writers that. That was one of my biggest hopes going into Season 4. Make the new heroes at least somewhat like Kagami. Actually make them explore the dynamics of what makes a superhero and how they fit into the mold. So, how did Season 4 do in this department? Well, it's kind of complicated. We start off pretty badly. In the episode, Queen Banana introduces Zoe as the new Be Miraculous holder, Vesperia, and I think you all know how I feel about this. You know the whole thing I was going on about in the Season 3 part of this section, where the characters weren't really worthy of their Miraculouses? Yeah, take that, multiply it by like 10,000, and now you've got Zoe. Zoe is the most egregious example of a character not doing anything to deserve their Miraculous at all. She is only Queen Bee's replacement, and will never hold a candle to the amount of development Queen Bee got. They kind of tried to workshop some development by having the characters all state how super amazing Vesperia is, and it was just so forced. Honestly, I don't even know why I'm talking about this character anymore. I made a whole video about her, and you all know why she sucks. Let's just move on. How about Milen with the Mouse Miraculous? Well, the episode was kind of about her, and then she did learn a kind of interesting lesson at the end, I suppose. But then again, it did feel kind of underwhelming, because this is the only Milen episode we get. Her becoming a superhero isn't supposed to be the crux of her character development, but rather the other way around. The episode only exists to justify her status as one of the heroes, and so it doesn't really feel earned, especially considering how little screen time Milen has gone up until this point and how unimportant she's felt. That's actually a pretty big issue with a bunch of the new heroes this season, feeling kind of unearned. All of the characters who get Miraculouses this season are truly like B-listers. You know what, that doesn't even do them justice, they're actually C-listers, at best. Are there any of these C-listers who actually come at least a little bit close to being something worth talking about? Well, probably Rose in Guilt Trip. That episode completely, entirely focuses on Rose and her positive outlook on life, and really makes you feel like she kinda deserves a Miraculous actually. The writers really go out of their way to make you think about Rose's character growth this episode, and why becoming Pigella was definitely the right call. I just wish it was foreshadowed and built up to a little bit more. Same with Julika in the episode Crocodile where she gets the Tiger Miraculous. Granted, she does learn a lesson about speaking up for herself, but this is literally one episode after we can barely hear anything she says. I mean, they really should have foreshadowed this kind of character development for Julika way more than they actually did, which was no foreshadowing at all. But I will give them props for doing something with this tertiary character at the very least. After all, Julika has been the quiet, shy type for 4 seasons. It was about time something changed. And even though I do have problems with all of the hero debuts in season 4, I will grant that Rose and Julika's at least felt somewhat okay. And even Milen's to an extent, because all 3 girls had debut episodes as superheroes where the episodes were actually focused on them, which is more than I can say for the final 4 heroes. You thought that the superhero crowd was getting bloated, you haven't seen nothing yet. How about we introduce 4 new heroes in 1 episode? Penultimate failed on many levels, but one of its biggest failures was the introduction of 4 new heroes at once. Surely this should be something incredibly hype-worthy, right? I mean, if I was excited by 1 hero in season 2, 4 should get me absolutely screaming. Nope. I did not care in the slightest, because I could tell the writers didn't either. Mark, Nathaniel, Sabrina, and Ivan did not become superheroes in this episode because they had meaningful character developments that this was the apex of, no. They only became superheroes in this episode because the writers realized we were at the end of the season and there were 4 unused Miraculouses in the Miracle Box. And so they shoved all of them at the end here because they couldn't think of a better place for them. Which, really? Are you sure that all 4 heroes had to debut in this 1 episode? I can think of multiple episodes that were basically filler and could easily be replaced by debut superhero episodes for these guys and nothing would be lost. Psychomedian, Glaciator 2, Simple Man, and Chilin are all filler episodes this season that didn't feel all that important or connected to the main story arc. You could easily replace these with episodes where we focus on Mark's, Nathaniel, Sabrina's, and Ivan's character growth. This would make Penultimate feel way less crowded, and honestly, it would probably be a better episode for it. It probably wouldn't even be my least favorite episode in the whole season if they did that. I would just think of it as mediocre at best and move it towards the middle of the list because it was enjoyable enough. This is a really big problem that needs to be fixed. At this point, there are so many heroes that every time a new one appears, it feels less and less special, less and less like a big event. They just feel like set pieces. Mindless drones for Marinette to order around as she pleases. Or, as Dotted Grey put it in one of my comment sections, another entry in Ladybug's Pokédex. Which is actually a very, very good way of putting this. All of these new tertiary heroes are about as interesting as an Azurill. The only one who even comes remotely close to being Mewtwo is Queen Bee, and she's off the team. These aren't individual heroes with their own struggles and witty banter between them. These are Ladybug's pawns and nothing more. Puppets without agency. They just do whatever she says without question, without pushback, without their own goals or aspirations or anything pulling them in any significant direction whatsoever. And that's why I don't care about them, because they don't care about themselves. I'm grasping at straws trying to find anything interesting about them. Besides, after they become a hero, they just go back to being tertiary characters. Anything about their relationships with their Kwamis or how they feel about being a Miraculous holder is completely glossed over because Ladybug takes back their Miraculous. And so, if they're literally just soldiers to her, why should I bother caring? Why should I even talk about these characters when they only exist for an episode at best and then never again? It feels like we never really should have cared about these characters in the first place. We should have never invested our time and energy into thinking of future storylines for them when this is what we got. Ornaments designed to look pretty on a bookshelf and nothing more than that.
The new heroes are another mixed bag for me. Side note, I'm not including Vesperia because while she is new, it's not a new Miraculous we see. I will say this fun fact though. Vesperia is a wasp name, and wasps kill/eat bees. Meaning Vesperia literally ate Queen Bee's entire career. Evil, right? Anyway, new heroes. We have Polymouse, Pigella, Purple Tigress, Miss Hound, Rooster Bold, Capra Kid, and Minotaurox. Design-wise, they all look nice, even Miss Hound. It can range from okay to bad, none of which I really hate. Power-wise, oh boy, here we go again. Now, to be fair, not all the powers suck, only a few do. The Meth's power of multitude is cool and well executed by Milan. Pigella's power of gift is interesting and I like it. Can be useless, yet I like how it matches Rose's personality. I also love her pigtails. Nice detail designers. Purple Tigress is perhaps my favorite power when it comes to new heroes. That punch is a force to be reckoned with. She can make anyone's head explode with that power. Electric and exciting. Also, Purple Tigress has the best hero design. Change my mind, I dare you.
Purple Tigress? Meow, that makes us practically family.
I apologize if this video gets demonetized, CR. Miss Hound's power is cool as well, more useful for making life easier rather than being useful in battle. Minotaurox is a whole new ballgame, pun intended. His power of invulnerability puts his defense to good use, and that hammer, bro is basically ready for battle both from an offense standpoint and a defense standpoint. Except, we have this issue. He has the power activated, yet he still gets hit. Then again, he's facing a Mary Sue. Capra Kid and Rooster Bolt is where the problem starts. Let's start with Capra Kid. His power is like Ladybug, but useless. It's clear the writers were rushing so hard that they forgot they needed to write concepts well. If they can write well even. To be fair again, at least Capra Kid's power isn't OP and has some differences compared to Ladybug's.
I can create any object I want, but I don't have the power to make it magic.
Nevertheless, unoriginal garbage. Finally, we have Rooster Bold. God, I want to choke this chicken so bad. No, not in the way you think. Design-wise, he looks awesome. Power-wise?
My power is to choose a super ability, and I choose to score a ball anytime I shoot.
First Fluff, then Sass, now Rico. Free Kwamis ruined this show other than Tiki. They really just threw in the towel and said, F it, and ended up making Panel Team worse than it's supposed to be. They did give more of an explanation to Destruction, and I could see it working. Mostly. So at least they tried to make that work. If that wasn't the only issue, it's also the fact these guys barely show up again. Like the rest of the temp heroes, they get wasted like this whole season. They don't have more screen time, and when they are on screen, they're either pawns of Ladybug or just chilling. I get if they don't have the time or budget to do so, but if you have good potential, use it! Too bad good potential is dead MLB, like my mentality. They may look cool, but they have a lot of issues, and not a single tissue can save them.
I know. Ladybug and Cat Noir's Miraculous. You'll have them!
Oh no, what did they do here? Oh my goodness gracious. Yep, here it comes. This is the part of the review I've been dying to get to. It's one of the biggest reasons why Season 4 isn't that great in a lot of areas. Chloe's assassination. Character assassination, that is. You thought Miracle Queen was the final nail in the coffin? Well, no. There is so much left here you don't even know. Because I will concede, even at the end of Miracle Queen, there was still a slight chance that Chloe could change for the better. She could have realized that siding with Moth was the single worst decision she's ever made in her entire life and go back on it. This redemption would actually be way more powerful because she would have actually had to struggle through adversity to achieve it. Or maybe these hypotheticals are just my coping mechanisms. Maybe I'm just trying to escape the reality set before us. I mean, honestly, who wouldn't? I would not be surprised at all if a bunch of fans decided to ditch the show after Miracle Queen aired because they were so dissatisfied. However, I was far too attached to the show to just give up like that. I wanted to see where these characters were headed, for better or worse. So maybe it's my own fault that I was subject to this abject horror of a character, because that's what Season 4 Chloe is. A horror. It is horrifying to see how low she falls into terms of her characterization. All of the nuance that she had in seasons 1, 2, and 3 have been stripped away for this hollow husk of a being. We're going to start off somewhere unexpected. Episode 2, Lies, because yes, Chloé does appear in this episode, as I'm pretty sure many people have forgotten about. I wish I could forget too, but unfortunately I am cursed with this knowledge. She appears towards the start of the episode berating Sabrina for losing her purse even when she had it on her person the whole time. And you know, this doesn't seem too bad at a glance. I mean, this is textbook Chloé behavior, so what's the big deal? The big deal is how this feels completely detached from everything that has happened with her. This is 2 episodes after Chloé betrays all of the heroes and sides with Hawkmoth. You'd think that this would be the kind of action that would cause everybody, especially Ladybug and Cat Noir, to be very wary of her. Maybe she could be thrown in jail or something, or at least suffer some kind of consequences for her evil actions. You could justify this by saying, oh well, her father is the mayor and so she got out of any trouble because of that. Okay, that's fine, I'll play. Then show us that, Astruck! Show us that Miracle Queen had any consequence to it at all. Because as it stands, it feels like everyone's just gone over some kind of hive mind amnesia post-Miracle Queen. Everybody is still treating Chloé like some kind of middle school bratty teenage girl when she is so much more than that now. She has committed so many evil acts on such a large scale by this point. Miracle Queen alone proves that. So why is everyone just hanging around her pretending that she's just an inconvenience? She's not just been reverted to season 1 Chloé, she is worse than season 1 Chloé. The stuff she does this season is the kind of stuff that not even season 1 Chloé would ever think to do. Take for example the episode Soul Crusher. A very fitting name given that its sole purpose in life is to crush the souls of anyone who still had hope in Chloé. This is the episode that introduces Zoe to the cast, which is so fun, I love that so much, hooray. But that's not what I want to focus on. I want to focus on how Chloé is characterized this episode, which is, surprise surprise, not great. Chloé dehumanizes everybody around her, even the people who she previously had a positive relationship with. For some weird reason, she's created a set of rules that allows her to be the most bratty person alive. These rules go into the hundreds. Are you kidding me right now? There is no way in heck that Chloé actually wrote these down. Does she like bully people and then she ticks things off of her activity log? If that isn't the most flanderized thing in the whole wide world, I don't know what is. It's almost as though this was never the original plan to begin with, and season 1 Chloé was characterized completely differently because that's what the original writers had in mind for her. That's not the only problem with this episode, oh no. For some weird reason, Chloé all of a sudden only sees Adrien as an accessory that she can use to gain higher status in the world. It's just, you, and I, and we, and what? Just how? How in the world is this how you read the relationship between Chloé and Adrien? Because I can assure you, astute viewer watching this video, that this is not how Chloé and Adrien were characterized previously. Take for example the episode Despair Bear in season 2. This is the episode where Chloé actively tries to improve her behavior to try and keep her friendship with Adrien. This was way more important to her than the ability to ruin everybody's lives. But now all of a sudden she sees Adrien as something incredibly shallow, something surface level. In addition, Chloé just treats her father, the mayor of Paris, like he only exists to get her what she wants. Which, yeah, that is a big part of their relationship, but Chloé actually cares about him. In the episode Maledictator, she actually feels bad for causing Andre to get akumatized and wants to fix her mess. Now she just says your father only exists to get you what you want whenever you want. It just doesn't make much sense, and it feels like complete flanderization. And you know what else feels like complete flanderization and an unwillingness to actually commit to your ideas? Her behavior and relationship with Shadow Moth. As you know, Chloé is now officially on Hawkmoth's side. She is one of the villains now, so why does she feel so bare bones? She should be so much more dangerous than she ends up being, considering she was the final villain of season 3. But no, she's just there to fill in the gap as an antagonist in the day-to-day squabbles of Marinette and Adrien. I mean, I don't agree with the decision to turn her evil again, but I would have at least respected them if they went all the way with it. If they actually tried to make her actively actually root for Shadow Moth and help him out in some meaningful way. The closest we get to this kind of thing are the episodes Queen Banana and Penalty. Chloé is the akumatized villain in both of these episodes, which can I just say is completely overkill. It was completely unnecessary to have Chloé get akumatized twice in the same season, especially considering the fact that neither of the akumatizations make any sense with her character. When you think of bananas and football, do you think of Chloé Bourgeois? I didn't think so. It just reeks of laziness, like they couldn't be bothered to try and find anybody else to akumatize, so they just thought, you know what, how about we make it Chloé again? And my biggest problem with this is that they don't go all the way with the akumatization, showing the relationship that Chloé has with Shadow Moth and how close it's become. In the episode Queen Banana, it's merely implied that Chloé was willing to get akumatized. She requests specific powers from Hawkmoth and also remembers everything that happens once de-akumatized. I just think they should have gone further with it. Think how Lila viciously grabbed the Akuma and thrusts it into her earring, demanding Hawkmoth give her supervillain powers. Penalty is slightly more ambitious in this regard. I mean, she seems to actively want to get akumatized way more explicitly in this episode. It's something, and something is better than nothing. It's a way to prove that Miracle Queen wasn't completely inconsequential to the overall narrative of the show. But again, it just feels completely wasted. Sabrina sees Chloé get willingly akumatized, and yet she just kind of forgets about it by the episode's end. You'd think that this would be the moment Sabrina realizes that Chloé is too dangerous to help out. But no, it feels like not only Sabrina, but everybody just completely glosses over the fact that Chloé wanted Shadow Moth to ruin their lives. It just feels completely unearned, and like there's absolutely no payoff for anything marginally interesting happening with Chloé whatsoever. Not to mention Chloé's complete oversaturation this season. She absolutely overstays her welcome. It feels like that Chloé's appearances are only there just so that the audience is reminded how terrible and irredeemable she is. You know how Lila barely did anything this season, which we will definitely talk about in a bit? I thought for sure she would at the very least be in the episode Gabriel Agrest. But no, and it turns out that there's more Chloé shenanigans afoot instead. Hooray, how riveting. It's just, why? Why is she here? This is completely unnecessary. Especially considering the fact that you've zapped all of the nuance out of her so you can't even tell interesting stories. It's almost like the writers don't know what they want to do with Chloé as a character after Miracle Queen, so they fall back on their old tricks in season 1, hoping that will land with us, but it won't, because Chloé's been through so much more since then. Every time Chloé appears in this season, I can see the writers throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what will stick, and then getting surprised when none of it does. Even though it's entirely their own doing, because Astruc's hatred for a character he created transcends all logic and reasoning. Out of all of the villains in this show, Chloé by this point is the least intriguing one. By relying so heavily on Chloé this season, other villains who are far more deserving of screen time and character development don't get any. There's this weird pushing and pulling with her character. We see her do some horrifically awful things as if we're supposed to take her seriously as an actual legitimate threat, but then she's treated as a joke villain. There are tiny glimmers of sympathy here and there, but then it's all flushed down the toilet and overshadowed by overly evil Chloé. Season 4 Chloé is 5 different characters condensed into one, and it's never been more apparent than now. If the writers don't man up and pick a lane, then I don't really think we have much hope for the future.
Fun fact, I said I refuse to speak about Chloé because of reasons. However, I'm doing CR solid like the gentleman psycho I am. I will talk about Chloé only in season 4. At least give me that. So in season 4, Chloé's back to square one, but more of a joke. There are times where she's annoying/mean, and there are times where her reputation gets more the angel dust on the soul of Valentino. We have Soul Crusher where we meet Zoe. Basically, she's meant to be redeemed Chloé, as Chloé's meant to be...
Your father only exists to give you everything you want whenever you want.
the Chloé we're supposed to hate and kill, if you will. Zoe's existence is a worthless waste. If they did make Zoe her own character, that's fine, I'm down. But instead, we get Chloé 2.0. Same as Chloé, just take away the development, the enjoyment, and the satisfaction of seeing her on screen. Queen Banana is where she gets further humiliated. I will say her hair down is a killer look, and that's all I can say I like from this mushy banana of an episode. For the most part, Chloe is an annoying jerk who changes the script over and over again for her desires, which some theorize is Asterisk cheating on the writers to make Chloe good in the first place. And if so, then it's clear why I hate this man with a passion, not the episode. Her villain design, powers, girl, and car are a joke. Okay, the car is cool, but it's all just pathetic. However, it did lead to this funny scenario.
Could you imagine being turned into, like, the person being turned into a banana and, like, they can't talk, they can't move. It's literally like Metallica 1. I kind of imagine it's like you're like still fully functional, but you're just lying on the ground and hoping to God a pigeon doesn't come and peck you open.
Or a hungry human. But...
Imagine like some guy just coming along, eating the banana, and it's another guy. Did he was it an act of cannibalism?
What if that one guy that was eating the banana was Mr. Banana?
Stay peachy!
You're banana!
That's the other, like, that isn't cannibalism still? And also, like,
double cannibalism!
Marinette, like, does the miraculous ladybug thing and just status quo's everything. Does the guy come back? Or is he still, like, digesting in the guy's stomach or, like, bust out of him like a chest buster?
Or what if he was, like, only half eaten and now only half of his body remains?
I mean, they do have a point. And while Chloé continues to slip and fall on banana peels, Zoe is here to take her place as Queen Bee, despite looking like and being named after a wasp. Already f***ing up her character, I see.
Amusing.
Soul Crusher and Queen Banana are only made to further slander Chloé and make us hate her. One, that's childish, Tommy boy, and two, it's a waste of time. Cause after slandering Chloé like the dead horse she is, the story moves on, as if nothing really happened nor mattered. This continues even after penalty. After being a complete goober again, next episode, it's as if it doesn't matter that Chloé mean. The story will stay the same. Is that the reason you refuse to talk about Chloé and G? Hell no! As if I'm revealing that to anyone or anywhere. That being said, I hope you enjoyed a rare moment of me talking about Chloé. Now if you excuse me, I need to drink beer to forget this atrocity.
Truth. Lies.
Luka and Kagami were some of the most unique and interesting characters during their debut episodes. For once, they actually allowed the formula to shake up a little bit. Until the episode Riposte, it was just a constant back and forth will they won't they dynamic between Marinette and Adrien. Back in season 2 and 1, it wasn't exactly getting old yet, but there was definitely something that needed to be changed. They needed to add something to it to make things a little bit more spicy, a little bit more interesting, you know what I mean? And so the episode Riposte introduces Kagami to the show. Kagami is a lot more serious than Marinette, and so she's a very effective love rival for Adrien's affections. The contrasting interactions that Adrien has between Marinette and Kagami will definitely get audiences speculating on who's the best match for him. Same with Luka. He's a lot more laid back and free than Adrien is, and so his interactions with Marinette compared to Adrien will definitely get people talking for the same reasons. They're very unique characters in that they're meant to serve as direct foils to the two main leads. Not only that, but they also serve to spice up some drama in the show. They're not necessarily bad people, but they are technically obstacles getting in the way of Marinette and Adrien becoming a couple. Luka had his eyes on Marinette and Kagami had her eyes on Adrien, and so of course there's going to be conflict there. However, I liked that, because it showcases that each of these characters has their own agency and place in the world. They're not just going to bend over backwards for the wishes of the main characters like they do in literally every episode of season 5, which is quite a shame. Don't get me wrong, I like Luka's character, but I can't help but feel like he was slightly boring in those early seasons. He was just this laid-back, relaxed, random guy who plays his guitar and loves music and all that stuff, which is fine. The problem is that he didn't have anything else. Kagami, however, had a bit more of an edge to her. Her cold and direct attitude was explained away implicitly by virtue of her interactions with her strict mother. Plus, she actually seemed to actively get in the way of the character's plans rather than Luka, who seems blissfully unaware. Remember the episode Anna Maestro, where Marinette and Chloé look at Kagami very condescendingly, and then Kagami proceeds to glare at them back and hold on to Adrien's arm and smile at him? It feels like she definitely did that on purpose just to spite them, which is funny. It's a little bit of a character moment for her. It showcases exactly what she's thinking and feeling in that moment without saying a word. It's little moments like these in the show that I want to see slightly more, because we're actually getting context to the character's actions rather than witnessing the fallout. But it's not like Luka Luka is completely vacuous. We eventually learn that he does get angry from time to time, especially against people who he believes wronged him and his friends in some way. That scene where Luka gets super angry and starts gripping the mask in Silencer is so raw. It shows us a different side to him that we rarely ever get to see. Same with Kagami in the episode Ikari Gozen. While in the episode Silencer we saw Luka's angry side for the first time, in Ikari Gozen we saw Kagami's compassionate side for the first time. She genuinely wanted to try and make some new friends to fill the hole she has in her heart. Something we've never really seen her actively try and pursue before. She seemed content with just her mother and Adrian, but now she actually wants more out of life. And at the end of the episode, she and Marinette actually become friends. This actually gives more dimensions to Kagami's character for the first time in years. And now it adds way more drama to the mix, because while Kagami and Marinette are now on good terms with one another, they are still technically love rivals for Adrian. How are they going to deal with these complicated relations? Well, the season 3 finale has us covered there. It's made pretty clear at the end of Miracle Queen that the alternate ships are finally setting sail. This shakes up the formula in a way that doesn't feel so fleeting, as it made me pretty excited to see what the relationships were going to do in season 4. How are Luka, Marinette, Adrian and Kagami going to interact with one another and each other in their respective relationships? I bet the writers are going to dedicate a significant amount of episodes to exploring this dynamic. Nope. As a matter of fact, they break up in the first 2 episodes of the season. And then they become very irrelevant for the longest time, especially Kagami. It's just... Ugh, come on, why do they always do this? Every time they stumble on a really good idea that could actually make things interesting for the viewers to watch, they just flush it down the toilet. But let's start with Kagami, because Luka got off easy between the two of them. After she and Adrian break up in the episode Lies, Kagami becomes incredibly less interesting. In the episode Mr. Pigeon 72, Marinette pressures them both to get back together, but Kagami is mad at Adrian. Then at the end of the episode, she ends up saying Marinette and Adrian are made for one another. Which, come on writers, now she's just another one of Marinette and Adrian's yes men saying they should be in a relationship, and it's so boring. Then she's angry at Adrian in the episode Gabriel Agrest before immediately forgiving him in Optigami and trying to save his life. Then for the rest of the season, she's either not around or she's just trying to help Marinette get with Adrian. What a stupendous waste of a character! Kagami had one of the more unique and interesting storylines in the whole show, and they just don't care anymore. She's just a background character now. We don't get anything on Kagami in terms of character development and deeper motivations and storylines until season 5 now. But in season 5, it's Luka who's the shafted one, so it feels like we can't have the best of both worlds anymore. But this video isn't about season 5, is it? It's about season 4, so let's stay on track. Luka, at the very least, had a few more episodes to actually develop his story and character post the breakup in truth. In the episode Crocodile, Marinette keeps avoiding Luka because she feels awkward around him. And so Luka feels disheartened because not only does Marinette not want to be in a relationship with him, she doesn't want anything to do with him at all. Which, yeah, that's pretty bad. It's actually pretty interesting because I'm glad that they didn't just completely forget the events of truth and try to act like nothing ever happened between the two of them. These are actual story consequences, which are definitely the best parts of any well-written story. So, where do we go from here? At the end of the episode, Marinette and Luka make up, and so they decide to just be friends. I'm glad they settled this little plot point within one episode, because I get the feeling that Marinette avoiding Luka and acting all crazy around him, just like how she does with Adrian, would get really grating after a few episodes. That's a good start, but where does Luka actually end up at the end of the season? What does he learn? How did he grow? Well, the episode Wishmaker actually has a pretty big revelation for his character. Luka learns the secret identities of both Ladybug and Cat Noir. This was the single best moment for Luka in the entire show. Not only was it one of the biggest things to happen in the show ever, but it also said something about the future for Luka. There were so many different directions you could take his story after this. It was so exciting to hypothesize. For example, maybe he could use this knowledge to become a pseudo-master food to Marinette or Adrian, or both, helping to calm them down and reason with their problems with tact and respect. He would actually finally have some relevance, not just as a secondary character, but as an actual main character for the first time. Honestly, the information that Luka is carrying around in his back pocket now is so important that for the writers to not capitalize on it hardcore would be a sin. It would actually be terrible if they were to mess this one up too, like they did Kagami and Chloé and Lila and so many others. So, what did they do? What am I building towards? What are the writers building towards? Yeah, you heard that right. Nothing. Or at the very least, what they do with this information isn't nearly as interesting as my alternatives probably would have been. They only really capitalize on this information and build upon it in the episode Ephemeral, which is the epitome of wasted potential. In it, Luka kind of implies that he knows Ladybug and Cat Noir's identities, but he never outright tells them. He goes along with Ladybug's plan, despite it being a lot easier to just tell her that he knows who she is. This would also make things really interesting to watch, as Ladybug deals with the fact that she might have made a mistake in some way. Then Luka could actually be poised to take on a greater role in the team. But instead, we just get something really boring. Luka dropping tiny hints here and there that he knows more than he lets on, but they never really act on this clarity. He just keeps it a secret, but I would love to know why he's keeping it a secret. Delve into how he feels about it. All he really does at the end of the episode is infiltrate the bakery, and then the Kwamis tell him about the rewriting of the universe. This is the closest Luka ever comes to being an important character in Season 4. And this very specific scene is the one thing that doesn't exist anymore because time was reversed. They just keep missing with these characters, I tell you what. Every time I feel like there's something deeper going on beneath the surface, I'm completely wrong. I feel like I should just stop reading so much into these things, because the more and more I analyze, the more disappointed I become. But wait, you might be saying, what about the episode Migration in Season 5? They actually pay off the Luka knowing their identities thing there. Well, one, that was in Season 5, and I'm talking about Season 4, and I feel like it was too little too late there. And two, he gets written out of the show at the end of that episode, so it's not like there was much of a payoff for interesting storylines there anyway. They just couldn't commit to any interesting ideas building upon the foundation of Luka knowing Ladybug and Cat Noir's identities. Even though there were countless ways they could have gone about his character moving on from the episode Wishmaker, they chose to do the most bland thing. And with Kagami, well, they didn't even try with Kagami, did they? Her whole personality centered around Adrian and her friendship with Marinette, and now both of those things have been simplified. They've been watered down. They've been filtered of all of their personality, and now you've got two husks left. While before, they were actually marginally interesting and had very cool things going on with them in terms of fan engagement and inline story. Now all they are two wasted spaces in the character gallery. They had so much potential that nobody could see or tap into, and they suffered for it.
Luka and Angel Kagami are like Zoe, a waste of time and space. Unlike Zoe though, the ships are more interesting and slowly developed. The problem is what Season 4 did, and it's from here where Season 4 began to suck. In Miracle Queen, they pretty much confirmed they are canon. Looking at it is fine to me, and Angel Kagami looks exciting. It made the fans of these shits believe they're gonna get more screen time and development next season. Open the doors to pure potential, baby. But instead, this happened.
It's summer, I got my hat on backwards, and it's time to fucking party.
They broke up immediately. Listen, I don't care if this was for tension or suspense. This is a golden example of wasting time and potential. You gave us these two ships that have lots of potential and ended up breaking them up. It makes me ask, what's the point of these ships then if they're gonna break up immediately? There is no need for them if they're only gonna last this long. It further explains why, in my opinion, Season 4 is a waste of time and space, and only should be watched if you want to waste time. Or some new heroes. When it comes to the characters alone, ladies first. Kagami is written differently, unlike Season 2 and 3. Back then, she was a badass competent fencer. In Season 4?
This is me. That's you when you're being sick. He's perfect for you.
She is an obsessed perfectionist and cool with Marinette, despite Marinette harassing and embarrassing Kagami. It did a number on her character and made Kagami worse. This battle went from a bad to a mere joke, like Chloé. Funny how we have this scene, yet they are both goofy goobers now. Luka, on the other hand, isn't a joke. He is just bland. I never really talked about Luka, so here are my thoughts about him. He's chill, a good pal, and maybe could be more of Adrian and a decent mentor to talk to. Yet, he's treated as a waste of time and space. He's just there and that's it. I swear, he can die tomorrow in the most brutal way possible, and the show won't change at all. it will move on without him. But he knows who Ladybug and Cat Noir are. Ah, yes, this argument. In Wishmaker, an episode I greatly enjoy, he knows who Ladybug and Cat Noir are by accident. So he's useful now, right? In Season 5, he only appears in 4 episodes total. Determination, Perfection, Migration, and Recreation. Migration is the main topic of this talk. And fun fact, the day I write this scrape, April 14th, it's the 1-year anniversary of Migration dropping on Gloob. Talk about well timed. In Migration, it's the first and only time we talk about his knowledge of Ladybug and Cat Noir. What about Femoral?
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
In the end, Ladybug, Cat Noir, and Monarch find out, and yet it's treated as a waste of time again. He leaves Paris with his dad to avoid hurting his friends and to avoid Monarch from hunting him down. It made this great idea a waste once more. Why give Luka decent development and a well thought out concept if you're only gonna use it to trash his emo? Further shows how Luka is a waste of time for the writers. His existence is sold perfectly by Miracle Queen. Way to take 2 characters and waste them in the end, ship-wise and character-wise.
If there's one thing that gets on my nerves about the show, it's that Lila is absolutely, completely underutilized. She has so much potential that no one ever seems to be able to tap into just because they're so focused on Chloe. Chloe this, Chloe that, Chloe is a monster, Chloe will never change, even though we already have a character who can exemplify all of those messages for you without doing a single thing. You know how Asterix seems to want to use Chloe as an example for people who refuse to change their ways, no matter how many times they've been offered it? You know how he wants her to be an ally of Hawkmoth / Shadow Moth? You know how he wants her to be a bigger threat than she was before? Well, the best part about all of those requests is that they're definitely possible. It's just that Chloe isn't the correct character to utilize when enforcing these messages. Instead, they should work with a character who already refuses to redeem herself and is more evil than anybody else in the cast in the civilian side of things. Lila. Lila can play a very unique role here among the villains. She can be the one without any redeeming qualities or sympathetic motivations. She was perfect to replace Chloe as the civilian antagonist for Marinette and Adrian once Chloe is redeemed. She could get more and more unhinged and dangerous as the show went on. This way, there would actually be sufficient and proper build-up for her succeeding Gabriel as the main villain of the whole show. And since Season 4 is the season where character development was placed as the highest priority, this was the perfect way for Lila to get more story. Involve her backstory a little bit, maybe find out why she is the way she is. Maybe expose her for her lies or something, and then showcase the fact that she's far more intelligent than we knew before. The possibilities are frankly limitless, so what did they decide to do with her this season? I wonder if it lives up to what she was up to in the previous seasons at all. In Season 1, Lila was the final villain and the very first character in existence of the whole show to despise Ladybug, as well as the first character whose akumatized form would be implied to return in the future. In Season 2, she's the catalyst for the entire finale's events, as well as being the first character to get willingly akumatized and actually side with Hawkmoth. In Season 3, she's given a lot more relevance and importance and way more screen time. At the start of the season, she wraps the whole class around her little finger and spends the entire season trying to turn as many people against Marinette as she possibly can, and even succeeding for a while in the penultimate episode of the whole season. Not only that, but she ends up establishing a much closer relationship with Gabriel Agreste / Hawkmoth. She becomes his arguably most reliable ally besides Natalie due to her manipulation skills. So obviously, she's got quite the streak going into Season 4. The audience has been made aware of her plans and how she manages to concoct them, who she hates and how she's going to get revenge on them in the future. But there's so much more about Lila that we just don't know. So perhaps Season 4 will fill in the blanks somewhat. Let's go over everything that Lila did in Season 4 and gauge whether or not it was actually worth discussing. Okay, so Lila only makes cameo appearances for the first 20 episodes of the whole season. Then, for the final 3 episodes, she becomes important, quote unquote. So how about we examine what she did there, her only showing in Season 4. In Penalty, she lies about an injury to get out of playing football. Then at the end of the episode, she forms an alliance with Chloe that doesn't really go anywhere for the rest of the season. Then in Risk, she and Adrian are supposed to go on a round the world trip for an advertising campaign campaign for Gabriel. Then in Strike Back, she kind of flirts with Adrian, who is actually Felix. Then, right at the end of the episode, she watches Natalie coughing and smirks for no reason. And that's it. I'm not joking, that is literally all Lila contributes to in all 26 episodes. Even the 3 episodes that she does appear in doesn't actually give us any deeper insight to her character in any meaningful way, shape or form. There's just nothing there. She's just a background character or an accessory and no in between. Judging by her showing this season, you never would have guessed that she'd become the main villain eventually. Main villains to be are not treated this way by the narrative. They are given all the possible build-up they could possibly muster in order to reinforce how vital they are. There is no way in heck you could ever forget their presence once they're on screen. But Lila is just so forgettable this season. After everything she did in Season 3, Season 4 Lila feels like such a step down. But why is this the case? Why didn't they dedicate any time whatsoever to Lila's story? Well, I have one tiny teeny suspicion. It's all Chloe's fault. You see, I've talked your ear off about the Season 3 finale by this point, haven't I? You've also heard me complain for like 10 minutes about Chloe's portrayal in Season 4, so I don't feel the need to repeat that here. We all know what we're on about. But I have a feeling that the reason that Lila was so absent was because they wanted to give evil Chloe more focus. They wanted Chloe to be the character that hates Ladybug and loves Hawkmoth and wants to work with him. They wanted Chloe to be the civilian antagonist that clashes with Marinette and co multiple times. They wanted Chloe to be the epitome of the pure evil trope. And so, this left Lila with basically nothing unique. Chloe's been broken down and rebuilt with Lila's core character traits. And so, that means Lila is going to have to be rebuilt in the same way so that she can be seen as a worthy adversary as well, without just seeming like a carbon copy. This is just my conspiracy theory, but maybe Lila was put on the back burner in Season 4 because the writers were trying to figure out what to do with her in the future. They were probably thinking, how are we going to make Lila stand out from Chloe now that Chloe is basically just Lila? Here in Season 5, at the end of it all, now we know the answer, and I'm glad that they decided to take the route they're taking with her character, but back in Season 4, it was a drought. I guess you could call Season 4 Lila's transition season, as it were. Everything Lila-y that was going on in Season 4 was Chloe's responsibility. Chloe in Season 4 is basically what Lila in Season 3 was. The difference here is that Chloe's arc was completely thrown in the bin for this to work, and this is why the failed Chloe redemption arc was such a bad idea. It does not exist in isolation, it affects everything around it, and one of the consequences of such a baffling story decision is that other characters who were filling gaps that Chloe's redemption was going to leave are now useless. Lila was the perfect character to ensure that Chloe's redemption wasn't going to mean the show was going to lose anything. She was such a unique character who had so many things going for her in terms of her character and alignment with the others. It feels like Chloe being redeemed would have allowed Lila to actually flourish, because then she could be the one to antagonize Marinette, except in a much more subtle way. Chloe just bullied Marinette and everybody around her knew that that was wrong and turned against her for it. Chloe is actually pretty unpopular with the people around her. It's very clear that she was inspired by the trope of the rich, snobby, popular mean girl though, and yet nobody likes her, so it's a fun subversion. However, the alignments for this kind of trope are so clearly established, there's very little wiggle room, and that's why Lila has so much potential, because the only person who knows that Lila is actually an evil person is Marinette. Everybody else thinks that she's just the sweetest, most amazing person in the entire universe. And this allows Lila to be way more subtle with her deceptions, to slowly manipulate things to go her way and slowly turn Marinette's friends against her instead of just doing it openly and embarrassing her. However, that is not what we got in the show, is it? Instead, Astruc and Co decided that Chloe was going to be the primary villain for most of the show's runtime in terms of its civilian plots for some reason. Let's just completely ignore the fact that her character development had already been bled dry by the Season 3 finale and there was nothing more of value she could offer us. Lila, however, definitely could have worked if given the chance in Season 4. Wanna know how? One word. Cerise. This kind of goes back to what I was saying in my Lila video, but I believe that Lila should have been exposed in the episode Ladybug at the end of season 3. Her lies were just so obvious and brazen in that episode that I struggle to believe that anybody else who was doing the same thing she was doing would get away with it. However, if she got exposed at the end of season 3 and then she was revealed to have multiple lives and mothers, that would definitely be a good cliffhanger leading us into season 4. She could spend the season plotting in her lair, trying to get back at everybody who wronged her. I feel like Lila was way more interesting in the final few episodes of season 5 when she became Cerise, so a whole season of that is definitely going to be a good idea if you ask me. She doesn't need to appear in every episode, just like 8 or 9 for us to get the idea of what she's about now. Then maybe midway through the season we can learn about her backstory. And finally, in the season 4 finale, she can succeed Gabriel as the main villain of the season and take the butterfly Miraculous from him. This way, Lila actually has enough sufficient build-up to be a worthy successor, and she has an actual backstory that serves to flesh her out. And she actually has something to do in season 4 this way. And I just thought of this in like 2 minutes, so how can a team of professional writers not figure this one out? I guess it's just one of life's great mysteries that unfortunately we may never know the answer to. Until then, I'll just rewatch some season 4 episodes where Chloé does something mean for the 50th time. It's not like we're missing anything in the process, are we?
This one will be a breeze. Lila's work in season 4 is utterly embarrassing. No, I'm not lying. She was clearly thrown away just so Chloé can be targeted as the bad goofy. Maybe Lila was absent for a reason and could be revealed in season 6. Nah, who am I kidding? It's easy because they want to slander Chloé, treating it like a drug. Whenever they take a hit, their minds are taken on a delusional mind trip of pure degeneracy, constantly making out of themselves for the sake of their sick pleasure. Huh. Nice way to put it.
Now, this is something I bet a lot of people were not expecting me to touch upon in this review, but I think it's worth mentioning. If there's one thing that the show had a nasty problem with in its later seasons, it's reusing villains. You see, in seasons 1 and most of season 2, there was actually quite a lot of unique and interesting villains that were originated from new characters that we never saw before. Every time a new episode came out, it was interesting to try and find out who the new characters were going to be and which person was going to get akumatized into a new villain. It kept things fresh, engaging, and intriguing. Then, for the first time in season 2, in the episode Queen Wasp, we saw that Chloé got akumatized again. However, unlike now, where Chloé getting akumatized is about as common as somebody on the street having 2 eyes, back then it was pretty intriguing, because it actually proved quite a lot of theories that we had about akumatization, such as, can you get akumatized more than once, and can you get akumatized into a different form than what you were previously? Queen Wasp was basically a confirmation for both of those theories, and it was very satisfying. And then Lila's reakumatization in the season 2 finale was also pretty good. Volpina was a character who people wanted to see return anyway, and so this was pretty nice for the fan service. However, it also showcases more of Lila's character by showing us that she actually likes Hawkmoth and wants him to win, and this is demonstrated through her willingness for akumatization. And then season 3 rolls around, and yeah, then it was starting to get a bit tiring. We literally kick off the season by Lila getting akumatized again, even though she was literally just akumatized. Does anybody else remember when getting akumatized 4 times was seen as excessive? That was just the tip of the iceberg and we didn't even know it back then. And then a significant amount of the episodes in season 3 were dedicated to repeat villains or characters who were akumatized already. The worst case scenario is literally seeing an akumatized villain we've already seen. Think Reflect Doll, Gamer 2.0, Stormy Weather 2, or The Puppeteer 2. But sometimes, in fact most of the time, the character who got akumatized was akumatized into a new form, which I suppose is better. It actually does make things more interesting because we get to see how this new villain quote-unquote's powers work. For example, Kagami had already gotten akumatized in Riposte, but then in season 3 she becomes Oni-chan. Or the episode Miraculous, where Sabrina becomes, well, Miraculous instead of Vanisher. Or the episode Oblivio, where Nino and Alya become the titular villain instead of Lady Wi-Fi and the Bubbler. Or yes, even Lila and Chameleon, because at least she's not Volpina again. I feel like Reflectdoll is kind of an exception to the reused villains equals bad episode thing that's been going on, because Mayura was in that episode and it allowed us to see how Hawkmoth and Mayura will work together on akumatized villains and senti-monsters in the future. Reflector was the first akumatized villain to get a senti-monster partner to help them out, so it was alright. However, that doesn't necessarily change the fact that reusing villains was becoming a tired trope by season 3's end, and given the overwhelming success of the show, you'd think they'd be able to pour a little bit of that money into new character models for villains. So did season 4 actually correct this in any way? No. No, it didn't. In fact, it doubled down on it. Say what you will about season 3 and the reused villains there, but at the very least there was quite a considerable amount of new villains. 9 episodes in the whole season were dedicated to characters who had never been akumatized before, which is something. That same figure in season 4 has reduced to 6. Only 6 episodes out of the 26 available were actually comprised of new villains. That is laughable. I honestly can't believe that that is how many there are. Surely there would be something more original in this season all about fixing things of seasons past. Nope, this season actually introduces something worse. You thought that somebody getting akumatized when they were already akumatized in a previous season was bad? How about being re-akumatized more than once in the same season? Take for example Reflector, who was really overstayed her welcome by this point, especially into season 5. In episode 3, Reflector returns as a member of one of the Gang of Secrets, even though she has completely useless abilities that will actually not help them in the slightest. When each of the members of the Gang of Secrets explain how their powers are going to help them achieve their goals, Reflector just says, "We'll cover her and then she'll be our friend." It's so funny, it's like even she knows that she's not going to be any help. But if you weren't sick of Reflector by then, you'll definitely be in the episode Guilt Trip, which is only 9 episodes later. In this episode, Julika gets akumatized because of her overwhelming guilt at revealing Rose's secret. So, what does she get akumatized into in the light of this new emotion? Why, Reflector, of course, because why wouldn't it be? Hooray. This is a really nasty habit. Honestly, Reflector does not make sense every time Julika gets akumatized, guys. It doesn't matter what Julika's upset about, she'll always become Reflector. Feeling guilty about revealing a secret does not necessarily translate to, "I'm going to make everybody look exactly like me." It's just lazy and uncreative. Why couldn't they have given Julika a different akumatized form every time because of how differently she feels each time? So let's go from it doesn't make sense for this character to be akumatized into the same villain again to it doesn't make sense for this character to be akumatized into a different person. Chloé, a character that I have gone on and on about this review, but that's because there's just so much to say. I can't confine it all to one segment, so I have to split it all up, you know what I mean? So, as you know, Chloé gets akumatized twice this season, which is just so lazy, it's unbelievable. The first time she gets akumatized into Queen Banana, despite the fact that Chloé has nothing to do with bananas at all. They try and make us pretend that it makes sense by giving Sabrina a bowl of bananas that she keeps forcing Chloé to eat for some reason. And by the way, this is the only episode where Chloé has this obsession with bananas. It never happens again, and it never happened before this point. However, you could defend it by saying that Queen Banana isn't necessarily a product of Chloé's love for bananas, but rather her ego and obsession with things going her way. After all, it was all about the changes that she made to the movie, which is a direct result from her arrogance. Yes, okay, that might work. Kind of, in a sense, especially considering the fact that the episode was more about Zoe and Chloé's relationship. However, I don't think you can defend the other one easily. Penalty. I have gone on and on and on and on and on about how much I hate this episode, but I'll do it again for you. Why in the halibut was Chloé the akumatized victim of the episode? And I say victim very loosely. You thought Chloé had nothing to do with bananas? Try football. Football and Chloé, it's just a connection nobody reasonable should have ever made. If you ask me, Penalty is a bad villain for 3 main reasons. 1, Chloé has already been akumatized akumatized this season, so Chloe getting akumatized again was just going to be very boring to watch. 2. Penalty's actions and motivations make very little sense. After all, the only reason Chloe got akumatized in the first place was because she hated football. So why did she get akumatized into a villain who is a pro at the sport? Have you ever heard of an akumatized villain whose only power was directly correlated with something that they hated? And number 3, there was already a valuable alternative they could have taken for who Penalty could be. The football coach guy. I mean, they went out of their way to create a new character model for him. What's one more for his akumatized form? It makes sense, he's all about football, so of course he'd be akumatized into a professional football player. The reason he would get akumatized would probably be that his teammates are losing or something, or everyone's terrible at the sport so he got angry, I don't know. Then he and the Penalty clones could actually show the class how to have a real football game. That could be his motivation for all I know. Not only does that make perfect sense, but it also allows us to see a new character get akumatized after a while, which keeps things fresh and interesting and we'll like it more. To put it simply, just stop akumatizing Chloe, okay? Did you only have the magical charms break just so you could do that? Because if so, that's a terrific waste. It was actually pretty intriguing to see Ladybug give magical charms to people, especially characters who kept getting akumatized saying they wouldn't be anymore. That was nice. It just wasn't worth it so Dearest Family could be slightly more interesting. If the writers actually committed to their magical charm idea, they would be forced to get creative with new villains every time, which would benefit all of us. But no, instead we get Reflector twice this season, Chloe getting akumatized twice this season, not to mention Mr. Pigeon. Honestly, why did Shadow Moth decide that the first thing he should do with his new powers is akumatize Mr. Pigeon again? He appears in the episode Truth, and then again 3 episodes later in the episode Mr. Pigeon 72. 72 times? Are you joking me, Shadow Moth? What do you honestly think he can give you after like the 20th time? In the episode Time Tagger, he said that he akumatized Mr. Pigeon 24 times and he's never even come close to succeeding. It's just so crazy and stupid. Why, Gabriel? I thought you were getting smarter this season, but I guess I was mistaken. And again, it speaks to this uninspired, uncreative, lazy approach when creating villains. We want to see Ladybug and Cat Noir create new approaches to defeating adversaries, but instead we're just seeing the same old, same old. It's the perfect representation of everything the show has become. Repetitive, uninspired, and lazy. Playing it safe and never stepping outside your comfort zone to try and see what new stories you can tell beyond the bare minimum. Honestly, if Lila is smart, she won't re-akumatize Reflector or Chloe or Mr. Pigeon again, and if she does, well, I think we all know what to say.
At this stage, the effort in making every episode gray as Cat Blanc is a joke. I get reason villains is okay, yet doing it all the time shows laziness. And I know good villains because villains are my type of drug. And villain music. And horror movies. And gore, if it wasn't obvious. Here are the villains who are new in Season 4. Truth, Lies, Psychomedian, Furious Foo, Soul Crusher, Queen Banana, Rocketeer, Wishmaker, Simple Man, Chilin, Mulok, Ephemeral, Panel Team, and Wrist. 14 villains! Not too bad, MG. No need to overreact. Yeah, it's not overreaction. It's the truth!
Tell me the truth.
No, not that truth. Aside from 14 new villains, the majority of return villains destroyed the new ones. 2 may even add in this video alone. Well, actually... I'll do it for UCR, and your fans, and of course, my victims. Return villains include Lady Wi-Fi, Timebreaker, Princess Fragrance, Reflecta, Horrificator, Mr. Pigeon, Collector, Maledictator, Reflecta again, Guitar Villain, Captain Hard Rock, Style Queen, Glossiator 2 times, Robustus, Weredad, Bakerix, Babana, Siren, Mime, Gigantitan, and Retrocop. Whew, hope I got them all. That comes to a total of 22 villains, including rebeats. Maybe 94 if you count all the 72 times Mr. Pigeon got akumatized. Point being, they relied more on the used villains instead of doing what any good writer should do, create new ones. Yes, it can be a pain, but it's better than delivering a half job. Then again, half job is what the show does best. Not even half, just 0 out of 100 effort.
How do you plan to make me do that? By using your powers, Shadow Moth?
I've saved the best part of Season 4 for last. Félix. He has had such a turnaround in terms of his character from season 3, it's almost unreal. It really does go to show that the writing overall has improved across the board, if this is anything to go by. Even though Chloé was massacred, even though Lila barely did anything, even though Luka and Kagami were wasted, at least we have Félix, right? At least Félix was utilized to his fullest potential. At least Félix got people hooping and hollering as soon as he went on screen. At least Félix had at least one tiny iota of moral complexity about him. Because by this point in the show, the rogues gallery was getting incredibly bloated. We had Gabriel as the main villain, Natalie as the side villain, Chloé and Lila as civilian antagonists. And then when season 3 introduced Félix, it seemed as though, hold on, wait a second, how about we develop the villains we already have before introducing new ones? We still know next to nothing about Gabriel, Natalie, or Lila, Chloé being the exception there, of course. Creating Félix out of thin air just gave them a lot of extra work, because if they decide to develop him further, then they're just going to leave the other villains out in the cold, and if they do neglect him, then great, we've got 5 barren villains. So what did they decide to do? Well, things started off pretty bad. Let me try and find a single thing unique about Félix as of season 3. Well, I guess he hates Gabriel, and he's angry at Adrian or something, but that's pretty much it off the top of my head. Everything else is just copy-pasted from the other villains. He's petty and mischievous, like Chloé, he seems to ally with Moth, like Lila, and he's pretty cold and unfeeling, like Gabriel and Natalie at some points in the show's history. And while she has eased up in later seasons, it's easy to forget that Natalie was literally just an emotionless robot in season 1 and most of season 2. I feel like the vibe I got from Félix in season 3 was that he just wasn't necessary as a character. He didn't have that much to make him stand apart from the other villains, and so I'm left scratching my head wondering why he exists. Season 4, however, came around and fixed everything right up. And yet they didn't really do it by changing his personality all too much. He's still a conniving little shrew. They probably just saw that he wasn't that unique compared to the other villains, and so instead of changing him up to make him so, they just transplanted him into a different category. Sure, Félix isn't that unique compared to the other villains, but who cares? After all, he isn't one anymore. This was kind of foreshadowed at the end of the season 3 episode Félix, but it really comes to a head in season 4. In the episode Gabriel Aggressed. This episode really focuses on Félix and Gabriel's tension, as Gabriel had his ring stolen from by Félix and he wants it back. At this point in the show, we don't know why Gabriel is so adamant about the ring coming back, we just think it's because of his attachment to Emily. Nor do we know about why Félix is so adamant about the fact that he needs the ring to himself, but later in season 5 we found out it's because he's a senti-monster. But the mystery and intrigue from this episode, by not knowing what was actually going on behind the scenes, made things very interesting. We were constantly asking ourselves, what does Félix want? What does Gabriel want? What's Félix's plan here? And that's how you know you've created a good character, when the audience is hooked whenever they show up. When they're asking questions about their motives, when they want to know more about the character beyond just the source material. And one of the biggest reasons why the audience latched onto Félix so hard is because he's, get this, smart. Miraculous characters, and indeed miraculous villains, are more than known for their stupidity. Gabriel not knowing Ladybug and Cat Noir's identities despite having all of the tools available to him to make such a discovery. Lila's manipulation, quote unquote, relying solely on all of the characters having the brains of a peanut. Chloé. Félix is a breath of fresh air compared to all of those other losers. His second appearance has him actually figure out Shadow Moth's identity, just by looking at Gabriel's tie being slightly undone. And it's pretty funny to say that this guy is such a genius because he went, that tie looks a little weird. Wait, are those 2 magical brooches? Yeah, sure, any sane person probably would have noticed something was amiss. But remember, this is Miraculous, where people are not sane. Marinette being all crazy and creepy about Adrian being a bit of a psycho as Cat Noir sometimes, if Hexon is anything to go by. Lila swearing vicious revenge against anyone who so much as looks at her the wrong way or calls her out on her nonsense. Chloé The point is, the bar is on the floor. At this point, Miraculous fans will take just about anyone with an iota of common sense. Not only that, but Félix also ruins Gabriel's trousers so that he can tell it's a senti monster when the real Gabriel shows up with normal trousers. That's the kind of forward thinking that I don't think a single character has ever shown before, not even Gabriel, because it always feels like Natalie comes up with his best plans for him. Meanwhile, Félix over here is playing the long game and being patient. He's actually waiting for an opportunity to strike instead of trying and failing to create one himself. And this all comes to a head in the season 4 finale. A lot of things from this finale were absolutely phenomenal, but the best thing about it was Félix. At first it feels like he just wants to help Adrian get away from his father so he doesn't have to travel around the world with Lila. And so Adrian and Félix just decide to swap places, Adrian disguising himself as Félix and vice versa. Adrian as his rational self probably never would have fallen for Félix's trap, but remember, he wasn't being his rational self. He was under the influence of risk, so everybody was being a bit off that day. Félix, disguised as Adrian, decides to sneak around Gabriel's office to try and find any clues to him being Shadow Moth and possibly swipe his Miraculouses. And this is what I meant when I said Félix was an anti-hero. He doesn't side with the heroes, but he doesn't side with the villains either. He's out for himself and is more than willing to screw over either side if it benefits him. It's one of the more interesting character archetypes, and Félix pulls it off incredibly well. So he opens up the safe and decides to swipe the fake Peacock and Butterfly Miraculouses that Gabriel left him just in case he pulled a stunt like this. He stole both the Butterfly and the Peacock Miraculouses, but seems weirdly fixated on the Peacock Miraculous of all things. I wonder if this is foreshadowing for later. Anyway, Félix ends up accidentally triggering the lift system to take him down to Emily's corpse. He walks down to Gabriel's evil lair and sees everything and is incredibly shocked and afraid to see Emily's dead body. And this was something incredibly interesting because even though he's kind of morally iffy, he's still shocked to see something this messed up. It really humanizes him because it showcases he's not the same cold, unfeeling robot he was in season 3. And it also showcases the fact that he's developed as a person and as a character. Plus, this scene implies a lot of things. It implies that Félix at the very least had a positive relationship with Emily, and it implies that Félix realized he underestimated Gabriel in terms of his villainy and how far he'll go to achieve his goals. Because if he's got his wife on ice down here, then what else is he going to do? Maybe that's why he didn't reveal Gabriel's identity as Monarch in season 5. He's afraid. Afraid of the power that Gabriel has not only as a supervillain, but as a regular person. It calls back to the fact that he knew that Gabriel was threatening him with his life back in episode 9. What else can Gabriel do? How else can Gabriel ruin Félix's life? What's he going to do to his mother? All of these things must have been hanging over his head the whole time. But there's so much more I need to talk about in terms of Félix's character in season 4, so we should probably move on from this. The episode Strike Back. Oh my goodness. This episode was... it was huge. There's no other way of saying it. It dropped some massive implications for the future of the show going forward. It's unreal. And the reason for this is who else but Félix. He seems to be the catalyst for all interesting storylines in the season. Ladybug, thinking that he's Adrian, accidentally gives him the dog Miraculous. And so he decides to take advantage of his newfound power. He decides to take advantage of the fact that whatever his ball touches, he can recall to him. He touches the ball onto the yo-yo, the magic portal to all of the Miraculouses in the Miracle Box. Anybody watching that moment would know what's next and anticipate it with dread. The suspense for the rest of the battle was unreal, because while they did end up defeating Risk and Strike Back, Félix was the loose end they didn't account for. And so he goes to make a deal with Gabriel, trading all of the Miraculouses besides Ladybug and Cat Noir's for the Peacock Miraculous. He ended up doing so much in the short amount of screen time he ended up getting. He did in 2 episodes what Gabriel couldn't do in 4 seasons, and it really makes people love him more as an antagonistic figure in the heroes' lives. Because unlike Gabriel, who loses every single episode, Félix actually came out on top. He used his intelligence and his powers to his advantage. He started off at the bottom but worked his way up by actually trying to. And they didn't do this again until Lila at the end of season 5. But you know what? It's too late for her. Félix was the original. He's the one who everyone flocks to when they talk about smart villains in the show. In just one season, he ends up developing so much as a character and getting so much done and being so important as a narrative device. It's a sign that the writers can actually write good characters and they can speed up story progression along if they actually feel like it. I just wish that they felt like it all the time, you know? Imagine if all of the characters were as well developed and interesting as Félix was this season. Can you imagine just how glorious it would be to watch this show and be able to call it good? It would be an unbelievable blessing. But unfortunately, other aspects of the season weren't as good as Félix's character development was, but you know what? I can live with that. The good moments mean more when you've been struggling so much through the bad ones. Félix gave people hope for the show, hope that they carried into season 5 and beyond.
This right here is the gold mine of season 4. Félix. Ignoring season 3 Félix, this Félix is a character I love. He's more intelligent, sneaky, swift, and overall entertaining. It's nice to see the writers actually make a character to be seen as a threat, rather than joke like all the others, even Lila. Not lying. The best thing about Félix is his knowledge that Gabe is shut him off. While it does seem out of nowhere, in representation, it's shown that he figured out it was him because of his existence. Or maybe he saw the brooches, which he does point out in Gabriel Grist. The finale, however, is where all the real juice is. I already talked about it, yet here's a recap from Félix's POV. He arrives to swap lives with Adrian, only to use that power to find the butterfly in Peacock Miraculous, only to be skinned by Gabriel, who plays Félix at the end of Gabriel Grist. More smart Gabe, I love it. Think we can get some in season 5? No, because the show ends sooner? Gotcha. I also love how he backs out of Ladybug. Like I said before, she had it coming for the abuse towards Cat Noir, but mostly because she's a goddamn idiot. She chose Félix over Sabrina because she's a simp. Look at her face. You know how happy she is to be his goofy. Aside from that, what makes Félix's backstab better is how it set the ground for season 5, which also got wasted. Not surprised. But focusing more on Félix's character, it ended up making him smarter and more menacing compared to the other baddies. It made Félix an actual friend, with logical moves and plans that are realistic that can make him a menace. For an anti-hero, they nailed him well. Just ignores the view if you will. And that's all I have to say. I'm gonna let the man who started this collab end it all. Thanks again for having me, Critter Retrospective, and for any of my victims watching, always remember, every time you guys bring in a thrill, every new video will be a fresh kill. Not my video, but who cares?
Season 4 marked a turning point for the show in a lot of ways. There was so much for the show to make up for, especially after that terrible Season 3 finale Miracle Queen. People were starting to lose interest in the show, they were starting to lose hope. Character development was getting squandered, episodes were getting really repetitive, and nothing was really going anywhere. We never seemed to learn anything more about any of the characters beyond the base amount. They try to do overarching narratives, but they fail tremendously because they don't give enough time and effort into them. Each season does feel relatively unique, but it's not by much. You can barely tell season 2 and 3 apart from one another. I mean, the intros are even the same, for goodness sake. For every one episode that progresses the story, we get 500 filler episodes. And so we were all sticking around for those few episodes towards the tail end of the season that would actually get good. But was it worth it? Did we waste our time? Some people thought yes, especially after Miracle Queen and they decided to leave in droves. Other people thought there was still hope for the show. It could still improve, myself included. And there was a subset of individuals who just wanted to see how bad things could get from here. Audiences were incredibly mixed because the writers just weren't delivering the storylines that people wanted to see in a satisfying way. Season 4 had a lot that it needed to fix up. It needed to somehow bounce back from the controversy brought about by the end of season 3, and expectations were relatively high, especially from me. I feel like it was less of a I can't wait to see how good this will be, and more of a you better not screw this one up too, because if they did, that would truly be the final nail in the coffin for the show. Who knows how many people would have left after that? Too many to count. So, on the whole, did Season 4 deliver on its promises? Was Thomas Astruc right when he said that every episode in Season 4 would be just like Cat Blanc? Is Season 4 perfect or pathetic? Well, at least to me, I don't think it's either. Episodes like Simple Man, Chi Lin, Queen Banana, Penalty, etc. keep it from being perfect. However, for every one of those episodes we get another Truth, Lies, Gang of Secrets, Wishmaker, Risk, or Strike Back. While there are certainly some baffling story decisions this season, and some really, really bad episodes, there were also some really, truly amazing ones. Episodes that actually had me excited to see where the story would go, and reminded me why I'm still watching the show after all these years. Because I started watching Miraculous in about March or April or May of 2017, I think. The unique premise of the show really captured me instantly, and so I was ride or die for it. I didn't really care at the end of the day whether or not things were good or bad. I stuck with it anyway because I genuinely enjoyed watching the show. And this is true even now. I mean, I'm literally making a 2-hour-long video about season 4. How could I do that if I wasn't enjoying myself with it? Picking apart every little story detail and storyline in season 4 is fun. Ranking all of the season 4 and 5 episodes is fun, and I'll probably end up doing that for seasons 1, 2, and 3 as well. If I actually hated the show and thought it was objectively hot garbage, I wouldn't do any of this. I probably wouldn't have actually been watching it in the first place. Even if it started off good and became bad, I don't know if I would have stuck around. A lot of my videos have been very critical of the show, yes, and I do genuinely feel all of my critiques were valid in one way or another. When I talk about wasted characters, it's because I wanted to see them become more than they were. However, the fact that a grand majority of my videos are fairly negative says a lot about the show's quality at the end of the day. It went some places that I didn't approve of, and so I decided to talk about it. Don't get me wrong, I definitely still feel this way. The show could have done so much more and been so much better. And yet, every time I sit down, have something to eat, and watch one of the episodes, I always enjoy myself. Miraculous Ladybug is a very special show to me. It's still my #1 favorite show. Yes, even in spite of its flaws, I still love the show so very much. And I feel like I could channel that love for the show into so many useful things, like making these videos and entertaining all of you. Since this is a collab between me and MG, I feel like it's only fair for me to quote something he said in his Cat Noir Left Out arc video. Channel your anger into something useful, something creative, something you can honestly be proud of. I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what he said. And to be the sun to his moon, that's definitely true in the opposite sense as well. Whether you love something or hate something, it's always an alright idea to channel that into something useful, productive, and creative. He made a 1.5 hour long passion project about how much he despised the Cat Noir Left Out arc, wondering how it could be better if it were different. And I'm doing a really long passion project all about season 4, and I'm pretty sure that this video has been mostly pretty negative, hasn't it? Both of us decided to take a piece of work that we either loved or hated and spin it into something creative on our own. I'd actually argue that he took it even further than I did, because he actually made an actual story out of it instead of me just critiquing the story that already exists. You see, YouTube, that's called fair use. So don't take this video down for copyright, please. Either way, there's so much from this season that you can unpack, dissect, and turn into your own. Even my fans and his have been doing stuff like that. I've seen plenty long analytical comments all about the season and other seasons of this show. Every time I read comment sections in one of my videos, I am honestly taken aback by how insightful a bunch of you guys are. You all have incredibly good ideas. You know exactly how to communicate them all to me and make it an engaging read, even when it's just a comment on a YouTube video. I know this is meant to be a conclusion for season 4 and my overall thoughts on it, but I just want to take a moment to thank you all, because the fact that I'm recording a conclusion for a 2-hour long Miraculous video proves that people want to see that. You guys want to see that. Without you, I probably wouldn't be doing this right now, so I honestly have to thank you tremendously for giving me a new hobby. If I didn't have this YouTube channel, I'd probably just be bothering my cousins about this kind of stuff or something. You see, that's it right there. Even outside of this YouTube channel, I still talk about the show, and I'm probably guessing that a lot of you do the same. Whether you like it or hate it, it doesn't matter, you're still talking about it. And while season 4 is admittedly a very mixed bag in a lot of areas, it's a mixed bag that I love to take around with me everywhere I go. Because at least it tried. It tried to tell more interesting stories, it tried to do more coherent character arcs, it tried to do something different. It put its itself in front of an incredibly angry fan base and expected to be jeered and laughed at, but instead, the start of the season was incredibly positively received. Truth, Lies, and Gang of Secrets came out swinging, and that was literally just the first 3 episodes. Truth in particular was an incredible premiere to the season. Shadow Moth actually showcases what he can do with his new powers. We pretty much instantly get more development on the Marinette Asgardian thing that Miracle Queen left us with. Then Lies pretty much does the same thing but with Adrian. Then in Gang of Secrets, Marinette actually reveals her identity as Ladybug to somebody for the very first time. It cannot be understated just how huge the start of season 4 felt. The end of 2019 left us with a bad taste in our mouths because of the season 3 finale. 2020 was completely dry of any content besides a pretty divisive New York special. Then finally at the start of 2021, season 4 releases, and it's an event. It's huge. If the Gloop trailers didn't get you hyped, I don't know what did. There was heaps of engagement and positive reception from the fact that the episodes were actually doing decently well for themselves. They dared to be different. They were trying something new for the very first time in years. Not a single episode felt like filler until Simple Man, and that was in September. For the longest time, Season 4 was delivering on its promises, especially after the hype from the start. I mean, I actually started to think they just might pull off the Cat Blanc every episode thing, especially after episodes like Wishmaker, jeez. And episodes like Glaciator 2, Simple Man, Chi-Lin, Penalty, etc. don't bother me too much when I'm looking back on the season in hindsight because there was so much to love. I actually enjoyed myself, and ultimately, whenever I look back on Season 4, I look back on it fondly. I remember the highs and lows, but I remember the highs way more than the lows because the highs meant so much more to me. I was getting tired of talking about the lows and seeing the lows, so when the highs rolled around, I was excited. Especially the finale, Strike Back was insane. Now, was this coloured perhaps by the epic Gloob promos that made a bunch of episodes seem a lot better than they actually were? Probably. Were a bunch of episodes incredibly hit or miss? Absolutely. I mean, enough people seemed dissatisfied with the seasons up to season 4 that it coaxed an entire YouTube genre out of everybody. To my knowledge, Miraculous Ladybug video essays weren't really a thing until 2021, starting with Cyrus. And while it's definitely important to talk about and critique the show for everything it does wrong, I think it's equally as important to praise it for what it does right. Because, especially in season 4's case, what it does right, it does so right. None of the episodes are unforgettable masterpieces by any metric. However, it did feel like that the writing team was kind of different because it improved. That's what season 4 does. It dared to be different. It tried new things, and while it did sometimes fail, it also succeeded. It showcases that if you try to fix some problems and don't completely succeed, it doesn't really matter all that much because you saw there was an issue and did your best. And to me at least, that's all that really matters. Even if not everything worked out in the end, I really appreciate the fact that the show tried to be better. And I really hope that season 6 and the upcoming Miraculous World London special do the same. This has been a critical retrospective, and I'll see you all in the next video essay.
Lights from 1,000 years ago, shaking off a hazy dream. Meet the flower who cares for everyone, the rising force of black and steel, fighting in the desert sand. Meet the snow that sweeps across the fields, the light and dark restore our skies tonight. Heal our wounds and learn from yesterday. You calling out their names, crossing paths again, 12 are coming through, bright stars from another place. Do you remember me?